Ever wonder what Batman games were canceled before they were released? Find out in every canceled Batman game, Game Facts Special. There's a canceled Steampunk Batman, movie tie-in game, and even some canceled Arkham games. We'll be looking at them all in this episode. In 2005, the world was introduced to a new version of our favorite Caped Crusader, with Christopher Nolan's 2005 film, Batman Begins. As was standard for the time, a video game tie-in was developed that retraced the events from the film. The Batman Begins video game was published by EA and developed by Eurocom for GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, and Vicarious Visions handled the GBA version of the game. All versions of Batman Begins unfortunately received middling reviews. But that didn't stop EA from getting to work on a tie-in for the upcoming sequel, The Dark Knight. Instead of Eurocom, this time EA tapped Pandemic Studios to develop the next game. Pandemic was known for releasing a few killer titles around that time, including the original Star Wars Battlefront, Full Spectrum Warrior, Destroy All Humans, and Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction. That's a solid enough reputation for any developer in the mid-2000s, and Pandemic's Brisbane branch began working on The Dark Knight in September 2006, about 7 months before the film began production. To get the story and the characters right, Warner Brothers provided the film's script and other materials, as well as an agreement for the main cast to voice their respective characters. The initial vision was a level-based game like Batman Begins, but Pandemic decided partway through development that an open-world game would better fit the tone of Nolan's new film. This change in direction, combined with game engine difficulties and development crunch, led to the game's eventual cancellation. EA only held the rights to make Batman games until December 2008, and there was no way the game would be ready to ship by then due to the mounting issues. All we have now are bits of what might have been. In an interview with G4 in July 2008, Jim Gordon's actor, Gary Oldman, revealed the game's existence, and that Batman's gliding ability was going to be a primary mechanic. Had the game been released as planned, it would have been the first open-world Batman game, predating the Arkham series by several years. The failure of the Dark Knight game also led to the closure of Pandemic Brisbane. There are even more canceled Batman games ahead. We still have 2 canceled Arkham games to talk about, and games for the Xbox and Super Nintendo. First, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because subscribing matters to keep us growing and making episodes. Project Sabbath, Arkham Knight sequel. Batman Arkham Knight wrapped up the Arkham series in 2015, but a follow-up game and expansion to the Arkhamverse would have kept Batman games alive with a brand new protagonist. If you haven't played through Arkham Knight, cover your ears for the spoilers of an 8-year-old game. Batman dies. The fact seems to be in question with the recent reveal of Batman's appearance in the upcoming Suicide Squad game. But fans have believed the Arkham version of Batman to be dead for many years. So how could an Arkham Knight sequel work without the series' central character? A time skip and a payoff to a romantic relationship that was present throughout the Arkham series. The Arkham Knight sequel was in development at Warner Bros. Games Montreal, the developers of Arkham Origins, under the working title Project Sabbath. Instead of Batman, this game would have starred an older Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. If you don't know much about Damian's character from the comics and animated films, he, doesn't share the same values as his dad. Mostly raised by the League of Shadows, Damian has a penchant for violence and death, which would have allowed for a dark and interesting twist on the previous games in the series. Unfortunately, there isn't much info about Project Sabbath, outside of a few pieces of concept art. However, that same concept art does reveal a few interesting pieces of knowledge. In one image, we see Damian Wayne sporting a very slick, futuristic version of a batsuit that is reminiscent of Batman Beyond. Another image, perhaps even more interestingly, reveals what looks like a grizzled Bruce Wayne with a thick gray beard peeking out from the bottom of his cowl. This is entirely speculation, but could Project Sabbath have featured co-op gameplay where characters take control of both father and son to fight crime and deal out justice? I guess we'll never know, but it could have been awesome, especially in fighting the new versions of Poison Ivy, Two-Face, and even a female Black Mask that was also present in the concept art. There's additional rumors of Warner Bros. Games Montreal working on an Arkham game titled Arkham Insurgency. It's said to be an Arkham prequel, with Batman and Dick Grayson's Robin. These rumors are similar to Project Sabbath, but feature a different Robin and time period. It's possible that each Robin was considered for use in the project before it was cancelled, though there's no evidence for the Arkham Insurgency rumors, as with Project Sabbath. Batman Gotham by Gaslight. After the release of Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman games seemed unstoppable. Arkham Asylum was dark, gritty, and adventurous in its approach to translating the many facets of the character into video game form. And if game developer Day One Studios' interpretation of The Dark Knight was allowed to see the light of day, we would have seen a more radical version of Batman not too long after that. About a year after Arkham Asylum, a game called Batman Gotham by Gaslight was in development. It was based on the 1989 comic story arc of the same name, which was written by Brian Augustin and brought to life with the stylish art from none other than Hellboy's creator, Mike Mignola. Like the comics, the Gotham by Gaslight game would have taken place in the 19th century version of Gotham City that was plagued by killings perpetrated by Jack the Ripper. Sounds like an awesome Batman game, right? It probably would have been, but unfortunately, work began on it before rights to develop a Batman game were ever obtained by publisher THQ. Whether THQ dropped the ball, wasn't able to afford the rights, or they were turned down by Warner Bros. Is unknown, but it led to the game's unfortunate demise. Thankfully, we don't need to rely just on our imagination to envision what the game might have been like. There's some leaked footage of a gameplay prototype for the game, which features cobblestone streets, Victorian architecture, and some truly incredible cape physics for the time. There's also a few gameplay details that were leaked, including a dedicated slow motion button for some Matrix-style combat, steampunk versions of Batman's iconic gadgets, and a flashlight. That might not sound too impressive to us now, but a flashlight in the 19th century would have blown people's minds, and it's a perfect way to show Batman or Bruce Wayne's wealth and technological prowess in that time period. Arkham Asylum Prequel on Wii. When Batman Arkham Asylum hit the PS3 and Xbox 360 in August 2009, and PC about a month later, it was a massive hit. It reportedly sold almost 2 million copies in less than a month on the market, but that number could have been much higher if the game had also been released on the most popular console at the time, the Nintendo Wii. Missing out on those sweet Wii sales seems kinda crazy, especially since there was, in fact, a Wii version of Arkham Asylum in the works. But instead of Rocksteady, Redfly Studio was handling the development of the Wii version. Redfly uploaded some gameplay footage of their prototype to YouTube in 2016, which is the result of a few weeks of work. That footage does look a little rough, but 1, it's on the Wii, and 2, it likely didn't receive much, if any, polishing. There's also rumors that this version of the game wouldn't follow the same story as the PS3 or Xbox 360 games, and would rather serve as a prequel or a spin-off game that shows events leading up to the beginning of Rocksteady's Arkham Asylum. Batman Dark Tomorrow. We spend a lot of time talking about how awesome the Arkham games are, which has kinda resulted in forgetting just how bad Batman games were prior to 2009. In order to illustrate the severity of the situation, we'll cover a Batman game most fans would like to forget: Batman The Dark Tomorrow. Developed and published by Kemco, Batman Dark Tomorrow began its development as an open-world game where players would also be able to control iconic vehicles like the Batmobile, the Batplane, and the Batboat. Hey, when you're a wealthy billionaire vigilante, you don't really need to make creative names for your sick rides. Unfortunately, due to the lack of resources or time, Dark Tomorrow was retooled into a level-based stealth game. The lead console for development was the GameCube, but an Xbox port was also released alongside it in March 2003. A PS2 port was planned for release down the line, but it was never released. Why, you might ask? Well, Batman Dark Tomorrow received scathing reviews on the two consoles it launched for. Game Informer gave the GameCube version, the console it was developed for, a .75 out of 10. Less than 1 point. Needless to say, any hopes of a PS2 port were dashed shortly after the game's initial launch. Batman Super Nintendo. In 2008, an SNES cartridge was bought on eBay. The cart contained a lost prototype for Batman Super Nintendo. The game was in development by Software Creations, who's best known around the time for releasing the Spider-Man game Maximum Carnage. The game is a beat-em-up consisting of 2 levels, with very incomplete graphics and gameplay. The game's easy to find online, but we won't be linking it here. While on the subject of Super Nintendo, Batman Revenge of the Joker is a Sega Genesis platformer that was supposed to make its way to the Super Nintendo 2. This never happened. Fortunately, a prototype for the game was found. So just like its cancelled Super Nintendo Batman brethren, it too can be made playable, if you know what I mean. Batman and Robin for the Sony PlayStation was to have a Sega Saturn release too, but the less said on that game, the better. Australian video game magazine, Hyper, stated that a Batman and Robin game based on the 1990s animated series was in development for the Dreamcast by Ubisoft. Thanks to Mike Alexander and Overbound for writing this episode. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for a ton more cancelled games. Check out our recent episodes on every cancelled Spider-Man game and new Super Mario Bros. Wii hacks. This is John signing off. Thanks for watching. This has been a Game Facts Special.